In this video, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide on how to effectively identify wasted ad spend and then eliminate it completely. It's important to do this on a regular basis because if you're not going in and checking frequently, there's a good chance that you're going to be wasting a lot on search terms and targets that just simply aren't converting. If you can eliminate this wasted ad spend, you can then reallocate or redistribute those funds towards campaigns that are performing or targets that are performing, or even launching new campaigns and growing your sales that way. So the first thing that we need to look at is what is wasted ad spend. So wasted ad spend is essentially targets and search terms that are generating spend and clicks without any conversions. Now, I know that's a little bit of a crude example, but just for the moment, bear with me. So our budget is a finite resource, so we have to be very careful with where we're spending that finite resource. So I'll give you an example. If I walk into a casino with $100 in my pocket and there are 2 slot machines available. Now, one of the slot machines, for every $1 I put in, is returning 50 cents. Now, the second slot machine, for every $1 I input, it's giving me back $2. I'm obviously going to want to spend more money on the slot machine, if not all of the money, that is generating $2 for every $1 I input. Now, that's probably a bit of a poor example. And if you do find any slot machines out there that are doing that, please be sure to let me know in the comments. But the main point here is you want to be spending money on the things that are going to be generating the best return. You don't want to be spending on things that just aren't giving you a return at all or a poor return. Now, in this video, the thing that we're going to be looking at are the targets and search terms that are generating spend without any conversions. So there are 2 things that we can look at really, and that's the search terms and targets that are generating spend without conversions, and then targets and search terms that have a high ACOS. In this video, we're just going to be dealing with the ones that have 0 conversions. So one of the first things that I do when I take on a new account is take a look at their wasted ad spend. I'll go through the keywords, I'll go through the search terms, I'll take a look at what's generating clicks and spend without sales, and I know immediately, even if I can cut that in half, that wasted ad spend, I can reallocate that towards either new campaigns or pouring it into performing targets and increasing sales that way. But I usually know that if they are wasting spend, that's a pretty low risk, high impact or high return on investment activity that we can be doing. Now, if you're watching this video and you haven't checked your search terms in a while, or you haven't used the methods that I'm going to be showing you in this video, there is a very good chance that you could be wasting money. So now I've explained the importance of consistently checking your search terms to make sure that you're not wasting spend. I just want to expand on the definition of wasted spend a little bit. So I think it's important to draw a line between what you would consider wasted ad spend and simply just things that haven't converted yet. So obviously there are going to be search terms and keywords that are generating spend without conversions. That's just natural because we can't expect that every single keyword and search term is going to generate a sale on the first click. It just doesn't happen that way. Like, for example, a keyword that has a 5% conversion rate, that means on average it's going to generate about 20 clicks for a conversion. So if we were to just turn off all the keywords and negate all of the search terms that were generating clicks and spend without conversions, we would probably have no keywords and search terms left. So what we really need to look at is what are the boundaries and limits that we set where we are happy for the spend to go up to or the clicks to go up to, and then anything that exceeds that, then we start to consider whether we're going to turn that off or negate it from our search terms. So setting limits is super important. It's important in all aspects of the business, but especially so for making negations and eliminating ad spend. Without having set limits, we basically have no measure. So we have no point of reference to check against whether we're actually doing well or not. And that can lead down a very, very dark path of spending a lot of money that doesn't need to be spent on bad keyword and bad search terms. So the 2 most common limits that I've come across are spend limits and click limits. Now, transparently, I'm not a big fan of setting click limits because, for example, if a keyword generates 1,000 clicks and it takes to get a conversion, and it's still profitable, then I really don't care how many clicks it took. On the other hand, there's no real way around spend. If you're spending too much without getting a conversion, then it's going to be unprofitable, and that's the bottom line. There's no way around that really. Whereas with clicks, if you have such a low CPC, it doesn't really matter how many clicks you're getting as long as it's profitable. And for that reason, that's why I mainly look at spend limits. Now, with that being said, I'm still going to touch on click limits as well, in case that's something that you decide that you want to go ahead and pursue as well as spend limits. So I'll deal with click limits first. Now, if you want to set a click limit, the first thing that you need to look at is the conversion rate of the products that you're essentially eliminating the ad spend or wasted ad spend for. So I'll give an example. If we have a product that has an average conversion rate of 10%, that means that for every 10 clicks on average, there will be a conversion. So we definitely don't want to be turning off any keywords or negating any search terms that are generating any less than that 10 clicks. The next thing that we need to look at is, okay, so where do we actually set a boundary of acceptable clicks? Now, what I would suggest doing, so this is what I would do, is probably go and look at 2x the required clicks for a conversion. So going back to the same example that I just used, if we have a keyword or a search term that has generated 20 clicks, so that would be 2 times the required clicks for a 10% conversion rate, and it hasn't generated a sale, then I would potentially look at turning it off or negating it from the search terms. Now, as a general guideline, I believe that around 2x the required clicks is a good place to start. However, if you're in a phase where you're trying to optimize for profit, then you may want to reduce that slightly. So maybe you go for 1.8x or 1.7x. So in this example, you'd be looking at negating or turning off any keywords that have generated 17 or 18 clicks. On the other hand, if you're in a scaling phase where you're trying to grow your sales and increase your exposure and traffic, then you may have a slightly higher limit. So you may want to set a limit of 2.5x the required clicks. So again, in this example, we'd be looking at negating or turning off any keywords that have generated 25 clicks or more without a sale. So yeah, that's everything for clicks. It's pretty simple, to be honest. So the first thing that you want to take a look at is the conversion rate of the product. So you know exactly how many clicks are required on average for a sale. The next thing that you want to do is 2x the required clicks to set your limit. If you're going a little bit more aggressive with growing, then maybe you would look at 2.5x. And then if you're optimizing for profit, maybe you would look at between 1.5x to 1.8x, somewhere around that region. Then the next thing that you do is pull apart all of your search terms and keywords, and anything that's generated any more than the limit you've set and hasn't generated a sale, you're going to want to negate or turn off. Which actually leads me to a good point and something that I should probably mention. So I don't recommend turning off keywords except for exact match keywords if they have exceeded your boundaries or your limits. What I mean by that is, so for example, phrase, broad, auto, all of those different match types, you don't want to just turn it off. I would rather drill down one level further and look at the search terms and negate those instead. Because what's going to happen is, if for example you negate the search term from an auto campaign, it's going to redistribute the spend amongst new search terms, and it's going to give more resources to those search terms, and some of those might actually perform. Whereas if you actually turned off that target, that auto campaign, for example, that auto target, then you're missing out on a lot of potential sales from all of the other search terms. So in my experience, I've found it best to only turn off exact match keywords if they exceed my limits. And then for any other match type, I would rather go down to a search term level and make negations that way. So the next limit that we're going to look at, which is the one that I most commonly use, is the spend limit. To arrive at a spend limit, the first thing that you need to do is determine what your average selling price is. Now, most of you would just know what that is anyway, but if not, you can find it in your business reports. So once you have your average selling price for the product, the next thing that you want to do is set a limit for how much of that, or what percentage of that average selling price are you willing to spend until it meets the threshold of where you're going to want to turn it off or negate the search term. Now, what I use is a 50% of the average selling price limit. So for example, if we have a product that sells for $20, any keyword or search term that exceeds that $10 in spend without generating a sale, I'm gonna negate or turn off. So now we've identified how we can determine whether a keyword or search term is actually spending too much and it's time for it to go. The next thing that we need to look at is how we actually put that into practice and how we actually go about removing or turning off those keywords. Now there are two main ways that I like to turn off keywords and remove or negate search terms. The first method that I use is just within the campaign manager. So it's pretty simple. The way that I like to do it is I'll go into a campaign, then I view the search terms. Any search terms that are exceeding my spend limit, I like to just make a note of those and then go into the negative search terms tab, and I will just literally paste all of those search terms in exact match and make the negations. Now another way of negating search terms, and this is for campaigns where, or accounts that have a lot of campaigns, is through bulk sheets. So you can download a template and you can just upload the negative search terms that way. So this method is a little bit more difficult to learn exactly how to do, but once you get the knack of it, after 2 or 3 times, it becomes incredibly efficient. Now, if you're going about turning off keywords, so remember, usually what I like to do is only turn off exact match keywords that have exceeded my spend limit. The way that I like to do it is through bulk sheets. So you can basically identify the keyword that needs to be turned off and turn it from enabled to paused, and then ensure that you're putting in update into the relevant cell for that particular target. And then you can just re-upload that and it's gonna reflect in your account within a few minutes. So yeah, they're the main ways of going about negating search terms and turning off keywords. You can do it manually through Campaign Manager, or if you have a large set of search terms or keywords that you'd like to negate or turn off, then doing it through bulk sheets is probably your best option. But yeah, that's everything for the video. I hope you took some value from it. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. If there's any questions that you have relating to this video, just be sure to leave a comment and I'll answer that in the best way that I can. And if you have any recommendations for future videos, please be sure to leave a comment as well. Now at the bottom of this video, there is a link. It will lead you to a VSL. I will be trying to sell you something. So if you don't want to be sold, just don't click on the link. But if you're interested in learning a little bit more how you can grow your sales through advertising and the systems that we use to manage our clients, then just go ahead and click the link. But if you're not interested, then that's fine. But yeah, thank you so much for staying till the end, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care.